Another episode of Big Green Real Estate Talk. Welcome to this episode where basically we talk about anything and everything with regards to real estate. But today's topic is going to be discussing the difference, or versus, I should say, exclusive agency versus exclusive right to sell. Chad, I'm going to let you kick off the segment today with this whole topic. Tell us a little bit about these differences here.
Yes, sir. So basically, a lot of people don't know that there are differences between exclusive right to sell and exclusive agency. Um, there's also something called an open listing. So many people are not aware of the different types of, I guess, agreements that they can make with brokerages around their city or around their state, whatever the case is. Um, they're typically the same across the nation as far as all brokerages have to have some type of agreement in order to list a property on behalf of you. And with that said, what that means is exclusive listing means that only one broker can be hired, which means there has to be an exclusive termination date, and it can't be 90 days from the completion of construction. The termination has to be set 90 days from the signing of the contract itself. So sometimes exclusive listing means that only, well, basically it always means that only one brokerage can list that property. Um, but there's a downside to that because exclusive listing means that there's a time constraint on how long it is, and so there's different options when it comes to exclusive right to sell is another type of contract you can have with a listing agent, and that's typically an agreement where the broker is only paid one commission, and then the other broker gets paid from the listing broker. So let me break that down further. That's the most common one. That's the one you see where there's one sign in the ground, um, and then let's say I bring a buyer. Uh, let's say, Tyler, I bring a buyer to your house. Well, you pay me for my services from my brokerage to support the listing that you have on the market. And a lot of people get that confused because they think that there's two commissions or there's four commissions. There's only one commission being charged on an agreement for an exclusive right to sell. Um,
That's also now that's because now just not to talk about just the sell factor, right? Is that there's also the factor that comes in where there's also this exclusive contract between an agent. So a lot of people are so familiar with the contract that is between the agent and the seller, right? So that's the main one that everybody's really um, up to date on, if you will, right? Kind of what you were talking about with that. Um, but the buyer is also there's also one for that as well. A little, it's a in the same category, right?
for the buyer, I'm not sure on that one. Well, I know that there's uh, the exclusive agency listing. I
Yeah.
don't.
Okay. Yeah, that's that. I think that's what I was talking about. I was only bringing that up because of I know I deal with sometimes not all the time, but sometimes I'll actually deal with one where it's just directly between myself and a buyer, right? So it's a lot different than the one you're talking about because it's you're talking about the different way of basically being able to handle that because with the seller side of things, right? So you have certain obligations, I guess would be the right term. Is that what I'm hearing here?
Essentially, yeah. There's pros and cons to each one. An exclusive right to sell. You have a if you're doing that method, you're motivating that agent to find a buyer for you because you're going to pay them a commission to list your house if they bring a buyer, right? So that's where negotiation comes in to say how much is that commission going to be. Typically, it's 3% to the listing agent, and typically it's 3% to the buyer agent. So that's a pro. Another pro is on the exclusive right to sell agreement. Um, it allows you to be able to publish to the MLS, the multiple listing service, which is not something that you can just do very easily on your own. Could you imagine spending hours? How many third party websites are there out there? Do we know?
Name a lot over. I'm sure over hundreds and hundreds of them. I'm sure there's
So
tons, and But you know, that goes back to something I was sitting there thinking about too, is like, this is something that comes up a lot actually in the exclusive right to sell for me, is that the way that the contract is formulated, I should say, is that I distinguish a total number of what it is, and then down later in the contract, I have to break it up as to what I'm going to pay out to the buyer agent if they bring me a particular buyer for it. Now, that is the exclusive right to sell. And one of the things is that, so could you imagine this? This is one of the things I find very, where our services become kind of really nice for a seller, even in a hot market, so to speak, right? Because what happens is, and I've had this happen tons of times, is where, let's say they got their property, I'm just using fake numbers to kind of give an idea, but let's say they have $100,000 home, right? So they got this $100,000 home, we listed. Well, everybody wants, it's already cheap. The $100,000 home should be actually retailing for 150, but they're just trying to get rid of it for whatever reason, whatever motivation that they have, right? But the idea behind it is I still get offers coming in at like 70,000, 60,000, these low ball offers. Well, one of the good things about in our contract, I know here in Florida, is that I can tell you about, is that there's a section in there that talks about where we can actually just check a box where we do not have to even disclose a verbal, like a verbal. So a lot of people get on the phone, they say, hey, whoa, can we give you 75 for it? And you know, next thing you know, it's like, no, you can't get it. Like I can answer him right then and there because I already got an agreement that says that I don't have to bring anything to him if it's less than this. So I don't have to waste his time is my point. Because if I had to call up every verbal offer that I got, that would be just a nuisance to the seller because he knows what he wants. He doesn't want to take a penny less for it. And that's kind of where our contracts here help in that regard. Do you guys have something like that in yours, in your exclusive right to sell over there?
Not really, not that I know of. I mean, I guess maybe expand on what you mean as far as that part are you talking about?
Well, there's like, for example, if somebody comes, what I mean by that is like, if somebody is, if you put the house up there for the exclusive right to sell, it's at $100,000. Somebody comes and offers 75,000, but we got on our listing agreement, the exclusive right to sell listing agreement with the seller. We on there saying that, hey, listen, we don't want any verbal offers unless it's at that price or higher, right? So it has to meet this price or higher. So it has to come in 100,000 or above before I even take them the verbal offer back to them. Now, if it's a written contract, that's something different. That shows a little bit more sincerity on that behalf. But verbal offers is what I'm really, explaining because that's what we have on our particular one.
I have not seen that over here. And I could be wrong. If somebody wants to correct me, please do. That's what this is for. But I have not seen that yet as a way. I mean, we have to you have to sell the house for a minimum price. I know that, like based off of whatever they want, but that's all negotiable, right? Because when you get an offer, it's an offer, right? You can't determine that on paper unless you find the right buyer.
Right, and that's what I'm saying. It's like it just gives some leeway is my main. It just gives some leeway to us, so that way they don't have to be bothered. Because a lot of times people will come out of the woodwork. I mean, I'll tell you the biggest ones. Like let's just say it's I don't know what some people would consider a rehabable house, right? And the market in the area is going for 150, but we know that it needs work. We assess it based off the work, and we're trying to sell it for 100,000. And then if the wholesalers, which goes back to a whole nother thing, but if the wholesalers come in and say, hey, I want to give you 75, and it's a verbal thing, not an actual written contract, then we can kind of legitimately, based on the contract I have with the seller, I can legitimately kind of just push that to the side and not even bring that to their attention. Why? Because it's not a legitimate offer that they're looking for based off of what our exclusive right to sell listing agreement was.
Interesting.
Yeah,
you're on the money. That's true. And then some of the cons of having exclusive right to sell are cancellation policies. So you want to make sure that you thoroughly read your listing agreement and review the cancellation policy. Some people charge X amount to cancel out of a listing agreement for, different, typically different reasons. No, and you have your own business model that you run by. For me, it's a little harder in Texas to get out of a listing agreement in terms of, I guess what I mean by that is, like, let's say I go out and I have them sign a listing agreement and I just leave the house, and then they call me and they say, you know what, Chad, we're going to go with another agent. And, if that happens, God forbid, I'm going to say, well, okay, I can't do anything. Like, I can't, as an agent in Texas, I can't go charge them an X amount. I don't know. Is it the same over there in Florida?
Now, so this is something we talked about briefly before, is that, I've actually had this. So this has been very crazy. So this has been really crazy. So I've actually had a termination price in our contract. We can put in there, if they terminate the contract, I can hold their feet to the fire with the cancellation price. There's many reasons that we do that. The number one major reason is if you got a nice property, you're going to spend the money on this property to get it sold. I mean, that's as simple as that. So this is not like this make-believe fee for one, right? For us, at least in my part. If I invest, let's just say I invest, it's a business. Everybody's got to remember this. So just keep in mind. So if I invest $400 into your property and I have a clause that says you're going to pay $500 if we cancel, okay, then I should be entitled to every bit of that. Well, you only spent $400 and you're charging me $500. Well, it's a business. I'm making something on it. I mean, I'm not counting my gas. I'm not counting my time. I'm not counting certain things. But here's another thing. Let me, and I know this is where a lot of people don't realize it, and I will kind of bring this up. So I also, on bigger houses or certain square feet, I have different ideas or business models in it, is that if they cancel, then what happens is I do charge a fee because of the advertisement that I have to put into it. Okay. Now, the one thing that I will say is this, is that I've had it to where I went out, everything was fine. I explained everything. I even and I know I've talked about this before. It's a secret that other agents can really pick up front, in a sense, is that basically I give out, the first thing they always ask is how much you charge, right? So I give out options, right? So I charge whatever you tell me you want me to charge, right? That's the way I look at it. Here's a set of plans that I'm going to do for you. You choose what you like out of this plan, and that's what I'm going to charge. That's the way my business model is set up. So kind of going into this is that I go on this thing. The lady tells me that I'm in an area that, so this other agent was coming like 3 to 4 hours away because it's a family friend or whomever. Well, they get there. She already signed on the dotted line. I had already left. She wanted me to do it because she's seen the experience that I had. And lo and behold, the other realtor, friend of whatever, talks her out of it, this, that, and the other. But then she comes and pleading with me about her fee that I had on the paper. Well, I'll be honest with you. It was within the same day. The ink might as well not even had dried. I didn't spend $1. Could I held her to the fire on this? Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But I'm not going to be that person, because at the end of the day, I just want to do somebody some good and be honest with people. And everything that was in that contract was 100% went over, from top to bottom, asking if they had questions and all that. So fast forward to the future, I already had it because there were some issues with the house, and I had a disclosure for her to fill out, and I had left with that disclosure. Well, come to find out, she did not have the other agent did not have her fill out this disclosure, and there's a big problem with the house and all this other stuff, and it wasn't named to the buyer, and now there's a big problem, right? So that has all happened. So there's a difference between somebody, especially with these contracts for listings, right? So you have options, you as a home buyer have options, but and again, I lay my options on the table. If you don't like any of my options on the table, we don't have to work together. And that's okay with me. You didn't hurt my feelings. I appreciate you thinking of me and having me come out there. But at the same time, I want to make sure that if I am hired, I just want to make sure that that exclusive right to sell contract that I'm going to have with you is at this point saying that, you know what, you're the guy for the job. And that's what I want. And it's up to me to keep my job, right? Because I got to still perform everything in that contract that's in there. You know, there's certain key points that we have to perform. You know, there's deadlines, there's, you know, various things. So I just say that out loud because I know, Chad, that we talked about this briefly offline a couple of times. And I know you don't have anything like that in there in your contract, which is terrible because I think that if you're spending thousands of dollars on a property and they just see you later because they don't think that they're getting what they want, but you know, but also at the same time, in my eyes, and this is hindsight of everything, is that sometimes if they have any implication, like as you go through, then maybe you need to reassess what you did and reassess what they did, because at that same point, it's like, okay, maybe I didn't set the table right. Maybe I didn't set the expectations where they needed to be. Maybe I overpriced their house, and now they're like, oh no, you told me the house was all the way up there, and now you can't drop it a dime because their expectations were a little higher than, and it should have been actually lower, you know?
Well said. That's crazy. Yeah, because I mean, there's pros and cons to each. There's pros and cons to each kind. You know, and that's the thing. So there's the other one is the commission policy. You know, so whether or not you find the buyer or not, you still get a commission because you don't have. You know what I mean? So that's a benefit versus what a lot of people don't know is that exclusive agency listing is it actually allows for the owner to find a buyer, and they are not required by law if that is the type of agreement they come to with the broker. They're not required by law to pay the broker a commission if they don't bring a buyer.
Right. And those ones, yeah, and I've seen those as well. Now, here's the thing. This segment's great because let me tell you something. Thank God that a customer of mine had the exclusive right to sell with me versus the exclusive agency one, right? And if I say them incorrectly, you know, please say, you know, correct it so they know what we're talking about, because sometimes I'll get on my own mind here. But so anyways, what I'll say is this. So this guy had me list his home. I had literally, as soon as I listed it, I had 3 showings right off the bat from other agents bringing the buyer to come and look at it. And it was like very next day. As soon as I listed it, 3 showings. Okay. So that was on a Saturday. And then I listed on Friday, all the showings were Saturday. So next thing you know, come Monday, we didn't have nothing. Nothing was really going on Monday. Now, mind you, it's only been 4 days at this point on Monday. Okay. Come Tuesday, I get a showing for Wednesday. So I got another showing coming up on Wednesday, the following morning.
Wow.
But that night on Tuesday, the owner calls. He says, hey, I got a buyer. And let's just put it this way. I said, let me talk to your buyer. So he puts me on the phone. And the first question I asked him is, you got a pre-approval letter? They said, no, but I can get you one. And I said, okay, cool. And he goes, oh yeah, by the way, we agreed upon this price. The price was lower, way lower than what the list price was. And it blew my mind. I was like, what? Why? I said, you agreed upon that price? Yeah. And I'm trying to figure this out because it's been a hot property. This whole entire time it's been a hot property. Like it's only been on the market for 4 days or something like that. And I'm trying to figure out why he just blew it out the water at this price, right? So he goes, do you want me to cancel the one tomorrow? I said, well, no, because they don't have a pre-approval. So we can't really see if they're, you know, if we don't let this go through and we cancel it, then that's missing opportunity of possibly a multiple offer situation. Now, here's what happened. So I'm looking out for this guy right now. He's, he doesn't know much about real estate. This is why, this is another thing. He's an elderly person, so I'm trying to look out for him for his best interest. Okay. So this is huge, guys. I mean, realtors like myself and Chad, we're looking out for your best interest. Trust me. I'll tell you this so many times. So anyways, so they go, and next thing you know, the showing happens. I'm looking at my email for that pre-approval letter from the people he said. I still haven't received nothing. Next thing you know, a contract comes through from the people that seen the house that follow on that Wednesday. Okay. So then what happens is I then 16 minutes later to the dot get the pre-approval letter. Now, here's the thing. I could write up that offer with the people's pre-approval letter for the lower amount, and I would bank on that money because I don't have to give it up to any other realtor, right? Because the other realtors want to bought the other one that I got the offer for. So I could take that and say, yeah, take the lower offer, and that sounds good to me because I make more money that way, right?
Right.
But that ain't what you do to be good at your business. You be honest. And guess what I did? I said, well, it looks like we got a multiple offer situation. I had to tell the people that I was dealing with and that he showed me and the other people. So I made up the contract for the other people. By the way, the other people was really ticked off because they're like, oh, he promised me he did this, he did that. Well, that's not the case. What happened is that we came into this and I said, well, no, man. I said, it's a multiple offer situation now. I said, meaning we got two contracts. If he chooses yours, then we'll proceed. But I don't have the right to choose anything. I just have the right to present it because the now, mind you, if she had a pre-qualification letter, pre-approval letter the night before, I could have had everything wrapped up in a bow the night before because he could have said no to any more showing. But he wanted to let the showing go through because of that reason. So guess what? Sure enough, he took the higher offer, which is about I think it was like $5,000 to $6,000 more.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah.
Incredible.
So that's what I'm saying. I got the guy $5,000 to $6,000 more on his deal because he was ready to just cut his own throat essentially like that.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
And that's why it's better to leave it up to people who know your market. I'm not saying every agent is going to be, they should, let me rephrase that. They should be looking out for your best interest. Absolutely. But I will tell you that, if you feel that they're not, you can always chime in anytime. We're here to basically make sure that everybody's looking out for you. I don't want people to sit here and feel like that there's not a reason to, because we're not going to try to lose you money. I know Chad and I both are not going to let you try to lose money out on this type of deal. So just keep that in mind. I mean, if that makes sense to you, Chad.
Oh yeah, makes sense. Makes a ton of sense. Makes a lot of sense. So what I was going to talk about next was some of the pros of exclusive agency is that you could potentially save money. Like if you do find a buyer, you don't have to pay the broker, and then more control. You have more control of the listing, which allows you to bring in buyers that you already know and trust. If that's something that you have in your arsenal. Some of the cons are less agent motivation. So if I'm working with you, I may not be as motivated to find a buyer because you could go find a buyer while I'm over here spending money on marketing and stuff like that. So it could kind of backfire on me. And then it's more work for, it's more work for you as a seller, because you're still kind of trying to find a buyer to save money. You're working hard to sell your home and you pick up a lot of the work. So yeah.
Well, one thing I was going to bring up on that is that there's something I've done too, is where I've actually done it to where I've had it, how to put this? It wasn't necessarily like where they have the buyer in this situation, the agency contract. I haven't went out and did it toward like that because I won't take a contract like that. Mm-hmm. And every realtor is going to be different, right? So the reason why I wouldn't take a contract like that because I already have a method, and that method requires me to spend X amount of dollars per house. So that's the reason why I don't take that, because if they happen to be at the next family outing and somebody comes up to them, oh, you're selling your house, then I lose out completely after I spent hundreds of dollars, right? So
Hmm.
that's one reason that I would never take on a deal like that. However, I have done this, is that if they have offered this, is that let's say, and this has been an exclusive right to sell, and I actually make like an addendum part of this,
Hmm.
is if Chad, if you tell me, you say, well, listen, I have Joey over here looking at my house, and he's really interested, and I was like, okay, well, hey, listen, if you really think Joey's going to buy your house, and he does, and did he have a pre-approval letter? No, he didn't have that. Okay, well, if you really think Joey's going to buy your house tomorrow, I said, let's do this. Let's sign the contract today, and I add Joey into the thing, saying that Joey, whatever his last name is excluded from this contract. So in other words, what that means is that that person, that one person, they may have like buyers in line to buy their house. I exclude them from that right. So in other words, I give that like, let's say, I might give that like a week after the contract signed to see if they do it, before I take off full speed, right? To
Right.
see where they're at. And then there you go. Now it only got one. Joey couldn't get approved because, Joey thought he was going to get a deal because you're buddy with him, and it didn't pan out because you need your money. He wants a deal. So it doesn't work like that always. But if something were to happen like that, that's the kind of stuff that I do. I'll actually add something in like an addendum to protect the seller from being locked in with me without having that maybe one or two people that said that they were interested.
Wow. No, that's a great idea. That's a great idea. I mean, there's a lot of opportunities and to use these agreements in your favor. And that basically concludes what I was going to cover on it. I mean, I don't know if you had anything else. You can get lost in this subject. It's a very thorough, it's contract law basically. So
Yeah, and that's the thing. I will tell you this is that one last thing that I'll leave everybody with thoughts and minds at this point is, if you're going to come out and you're going to you're going to want to list your house with a realtor. These are the key points, and I'm just going to go over them. And I'm just talking about from the exclusive right to sell side of things. You can look at your, I don't know, and again, this is in Florida. I know it's going to vary for Texas. So one thing is the escrow money. There's a split between escrow money in case somebody doesn't close. I know that we get, and you guys call it earnest money, but we as the brokerage will get X amount back. Usually I'll do a 60-40, but I've asked, some people say, well, can you do 50-50? Yeah, I'll go ahead and do it since they're asking, I don't have a problem with it. Normally I try to do 60-40 because you are spending money on advertisement. Once again, it's all about the advertisement dollars you spend out and how you're going to try to get them back if somebody defaults on their escrow, right?
yeah.
So that's one thing. Look at your termination date. I don't like to be married to people, especially the way the market is right now. I'm definitely not trying to be married to nobody. I already got a wife tells me what to do, so I don't need nobody else telling me what to do all the time. So I start with I just go with like a 4 to 5 month contract with a house. If I can't sell it in 4 to 5 months, then then I it's either overpriced, something I didn't do right, basically. So I don't deserve your business at that point. So that's the big thing for me. And then also look at your termination clause as far as what we talked about with the pricing. It may be 500, maybe 3,000. It just depends on where you're at. So always look for that. And these are just some highlights I hit. And if you have any special ones you want to touch for Texas, and we'll wrap it up.
No, I think you got a lot of them. I mean, it's just a matter of knowing, what questions to ask whenever you get into that conversation with wanting to list your home. If you want your home sold in the shortest amount of time for the highest market value, definitely get with me so we can sign you an exclusive right to sell agreement and get you taken care of. Other than that, I don't have anything. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, please, on YouTube. I'm under Limitless Realty Group. And Tyler, you're under.
Yeah, Real Estate with Tyler Triplett. You can check that out. Also, just type in Tyler Triplett at YouTube, whichever works best. And last but not least, that I'm going to say, and I won't make it no longer, is if you're not in Texas, you're not in Florida, and you need a realtor and you want to check on these things, we vet real estate agents for you in those things. So we actually do your real estate realtor shopping for you. So you don't have to interview. You can actually, we position ourselves as the expert to let you know what to look for. And if you don't know what to look for, we can look for those things when we do our own interviews for your area. So feel free to reach out to us no matter where you're at.
That's right. Well, thank you guys for tuning in, and have a blessed day.
All right. Thank you. See you. Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. We're so bad. Merry, Merry, Merry. Today is December 23rd.